Good afternoon, and this is Gokul Bakshi, who has been working in as a metalsmith for over 7 years. So, Gokul, can you give us a brief of your career so far?
Yes, Johan, sure. I think that my career as a metalsmith began shortly after I was working for 2 years post college. So I completed college in 2014 at Skidmore College in the United States, upstate New York. I studied metals and sculpture for about 2 years to 3 years during that time, and eventually broke out right from college into other jobs. So I did a job as a production consultant, which I explained to you, but just to put it in short words, I was freelancing as a audio video engineer. So any job that I could get my hands on after college, I did that. I spent that first year and a half renting a little bench or a studio in New York and working out of there. It was a collective, so it's like an office common space. Instead of going with your laptops, you could take your laptop, but you're going there with your metals and you have the torches, the tools, all of the equipment a sculpture studio would have. You get to rent a space for yourself and a little cubby, and then you start to make and cultivate your own craft. So I did that for about a year, and then eventually I traveled for about a year through Latin America as I was heading back to India. During that time, I didn't really do much of metalsmithing. I was exploring, understanding what I wanted to do, what the world looked like. It was quite beautiful. I was pursuing, I myself in Cody had promised myself to do capoeira. It's a Brazilian martial arts. And I ended up doing that in Brazil for a while, even and New York as well. And I came to India in about 2016. My mother then asked me to join her in running a small boutique hotel in Goa. So I did that with her for about 2 years, 2.5, 3 years. I'd say two full seasons. We did it really well. It was a really good time. And during that phase, towards the end of it, I had started doing some wax carvings at home. So I think by 2018, it was that I was doing wax carvings and making some rings again and starting my jewelry work. After which, in 2018, a box that I had shipped in 2015 from college with all of my supplies and all of my jewelry belongings and books had reached 3 years later to my house in New Delhi. So I think it was um, providence. It intervened and I came back to Delhi. Opened the box, went into my parents' basement, and started my studio. And today I work out of there. So since 2018, I think it's been 2 years now that I've been working out of my home basement as a metalsmith.
Wonderful. So, what was your main motivation to become a metalsmith, and how did you study art?
Well, my story so far is not one where I knew exactly where I belonged in this world and what I wanted to do. I remember, for as far as back as I can see, one of the most interesting things to me, and somehow I think that one realizes the things that they do in their childhood, the objects and the materials they hold affinity for, end up coming back full circle as they grow up. And I used to play with a lot of Lego as a child, and I enjoyed it and loved it a lot. We didn't have phones and computers, so I loved making things. I loved learning about how to make things. It could be a fire, it could be an oven, it could be making jewelry, it could be making tech, technical stuff, accessories, gadgets, science experiments. The best part about physics was doing the experiments and actually discovering the laws of physics versus all the paperwork and all the labs. So for me, the main motivation to be a metalsmith would be I loved to create. I always like to create, and I always like to work with my hands and explore what it is that fascinates me about construction, architectural languages, spaces. And I realized soon in art school that my affinity was for 3D objects and for making with my hands. So I tried painting and I tried digital media, I tried marketing, but eventually I came down to jewelry because I quite enjoyed the world that it creates, what you can do to materials that jewelry concerns itself with. And contemporary jewelry today concerns itself with any and all materials. So you can basically do whatever you like. I think that for me, my biggest motivation is that I love crystals and I love making things with my hands. And I think that jewelry allows me to do that on a very small scale, which is very enjoyable.
Great.
Yeah.
So, where has your work been featured?
So my work has been featured in very few places so far. I did a show in my college, and that was a sculpture-based show. So I did my thesis, which was in sculpture and not jewelry at the time, which now lies in the science building in college. And after that, I have featured my work in a gallery come retail store which is now closed. It's called Bungalow 8. It was in Mumbai. It's, I think, yes, it's not operational anymore, but those are the two places that I've shown. And yeah, currently I just show in my own home studio.
All right. So, what are the online courses you feel some students should begin studying if they're interested in taking up jewelry, considering it's this time of COVID?
So it's very that's a very potent question actually, because during this time of COVID, I would really encourage people to get on YouTube first and look at how things are made, if that is something that they like to do, and possibly first off search DIYs, so do it yourself videos. I taught myself how to anodize titanium, and that was a really fun process. And titanium is a really, really, really cool metal because you can do the setup at home and you can take a sheet of titanium and you can anodize it, the surface of the metal, where you're passing an electric current through, and it's very safe. It sounds a little dangerous, but it's not if you're careful. You're passing an electric current and channeling it through a liquid base which is electrolyzed, and essentially what it does is it plates the titanium and has a reaction, and it gives you at different volts different colors. So you can just go to the market and get a 9 volt battery and connect it with a couple of wires, put a liquid solution, dip your metal in, and when you take it out it'll be golden, and that color stays. So that becomes the surface. So that's one of the things that I just DIY'd myself. And then obviously there are many courses to be done on Instagram and on YouTube, and there's so many places one can look, but they would need to have a setup for the jewelry, so to speak, in COVID times. Another thing that I would encourage is fermentation. It has nothing to do with jewelry, but again, it's a beautiful process. I think that what is lovely about jewelry is that it allows you to access process with metals, and you realize that even metals are not immune to reaction. Even silver reacts with oxygen in the air if you let it be. It's a very beautiful concept, and you can explore that in of any way that you like. I don't know if you know how bread is made, but essentially yeast is taken from the air. It's something that already exists, but we don't see. And only when we take water and flour and mix it together and then allow the air to interact with it, it gets infected with a bug which actually grows inside the yeast and eventually starts to get it to bubble, which is a really beautiful process. And all of these things can be done at home. So I would generally say, yeah, start with YouTube and then find people. Start with, I mean, today you have Instagram and YouTube, you have great channels to learn, lots of information going around. So I think primarily it's up to you to kind of look at what you have an appetite for and then find that video and kind of do it. I made my own ginger beer the other day. It was really good. You can make it too. It's very easy. It's a multiple day process and it's a lot of fun.
Wow, that sounds so cool.
Yeah.
So, what guidance would you like to give some students who are looking to pursue a similar career in jewelry and metal?
Interesting. Metalwork and jewelry is something that I chanced upon, and I'm really glad I did that. I don't think that it is something. In my case, I would suggest people to continue to draw. I think one of the things that I did as a kid in school, I used to doodle a lot in Cody. All my notebooks have just doodles and doodles and doodles and notes and doodles. And drawing and doodling is very important because it is now I find something that has influenced my jewelry making process. I think my biggest takeaway and the biggest thing that I could say for other people is that as you are growing up, you will find that you have an affinity for something. And I think it's very important not to ignore that. It's very important to recognize what you like and what you find yourself doing a lot, and to give that the attention that it requires. Oftentimes, people will correct you and say, no, don't do this so much, do that, or why don't you try and get an internship in work, or why don't you try and get a job with this person, or try to work in this media field. For me, that didn't work. For me, what worked was actually taking a step back, going home and messing around with a few batteries and looking at what I liked, going back to my Lego, um, starting a fire, buying a few bricks. Honestly, creativity starts with taking something and making it something else. And it doesn't really have to be anything. There are no labels, but it's just a matter of continuing to do what you would do. So I would say that students who are there's a lot of advice I could give students who are looking to do jewelry. There's jewelry entails not just metals; it entails drawings, which can lead you to automobile industry. You can start to have a career in jewelry making, and then get into CAD and Rhino, and then through the software and through your knowledge of the materials, you can start to work for industry. You can get into car designs. You could be working for Lamborghini. You could be working for Apple. There's a lot of opportunity because not only are you actively doing the technical part, but you're also doing a lot, engaging yourself with a lot of designing. So jewelry is very expansive. Then there's the whole world of crystals and gemology and geology and gemology. And all of these things are very interesting too for some people. I find myself fascinated with gemstones. I love them. They're so various. Their refraction is beautiful. And so that's what I take away from that. So I would say just keep fueling the fire that you have, and the channels will open up. The channels will generally open up, and they will come. As there's actually a website called Klimt online, Klimt02, and I can give you a link if you'd like. That's a great website for somebody who has a knowledge of the jewelry world and would like to do a month-long course somewhere else in the world. I mean, obviously COVID is stopping things now, but in a few months I think things should be normal, or a new normal, and you'll be able to take classes. There's a lot of local artisans in India too. They're doing a lot of beautiful work, and it's just all around you. The kitchen is the best place. The kitchen is the science lab in your own house. You just have to be a little careful, but that's where it all begins. So that's the advice I would give. Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
So thank you, Gokul. Thank you so much for your time. It was very interesting talking to you. Never
Yeah.
really touched on the subject before.
Thank you.